was going to let things slide, but I said no. Because it really, really, really gets to me. The arrogance of this individual. So first of all, let's talk about their webpage. About Us. Discuss Global is an independent media outlet focused on delivering fair and unbiased reports of things happening around the world and online. We strive to give a fair and comprehensive overview of topics that matter to you. We believe with many of the issues in the world today, we will not be able to find solutions if we cannot civilly discuss issues with one another. That's the biggest part of hogwash you're ever going to read, and I'm going to explain why. This morning I had an altercation with the individual concerned because he's not a reporter, he's an activist, and I can show you that as well. The reason why I say he's an activist, go to his homepage, and he has on there Black Lives Matter. Has he researched what Black Lives Matter organisation is? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a few things because I'm curious. As he says to me about research. So let's do research, shall we, together? Let's talk about coronavirus. COVID-19 deaths worldwide per 1 million population as of June 26, 2020 by country. So top of the leaderboard is Belgium with 851.51 deaths per million with a population of 11.42 million. Next up is United Kingdom with a population of 66.49 million and a deaths per million of 650.18. If we go down, we'll find United States of America with a population of 327.17 million and a deaths per million at 379.78. Drastic differences there. But I digress. Let's go to, for instance, the UK. So United States is 40 times bigger than the United Kingdom. So where did the United Kingdom go wrong? Well, it did a lot of things wrong, and this could enforce his argument about masks. Because when you do research, you have to do, when you're doing a paper, you have to put the arguments for, the arguments against. You have to give both sides of the evidence before you come up with a conclusion. And you learn this when you do papers for academic work. So as you can see, it wasn't until June the 15th that they say people had to wear masks compulsory on public transport. Although when you went to the shops in the UK, you had to wear a mask, and also at the same time they were in lockdown, and they've only just recently come out of lockdown. Well, let's look at Belgium, shall we? Let's see how Belgium created it. See, Belgium would fit in the United States 322 times. It's quite scary considering how many people have died per million. So what did Belgium do? Well, Belgium have a gloved and masked Belgians head back into shops after lockdown. Belgium allowed most of its shops to reopen on Monday with strict hygiene rules for customers, following in the footsteps of Spain in an easing of its 8-week lockdown as the number of COVID-19 cases fail. Belgians must now shop alone and should wear face masks and in some stores even gloves, but many still throng shopping streets for the first time since mid-March, albeit with a cordon system in place to create one-way routes and avoid pedestrians from bumping into one another. I mean, one extreme to the other, yet Belgium has the highest death rates. So is the masks working, or is there something else at play here? Because the data and the facts matter. Well, let's go to his source of his single source, which is the Lancet. Now, we have Skeptical of Medical Science Reports by Carlton Giles. I'm going to read something here. More recently, Richard Horton, editor of The Lancet, wrote that the case against science is straightforward. Much of the scientific literature, perhaps half, may simply be untrue. Afflicted by studies with small sample sizes, tiny effects, invalid exploratory analysis and flagrant conflicts of interest, together with an obsession for pursuing fashionable trends of dubious importance, science has taken a turn towards darkness. This was written in October of 2015. Shall we go further? The Lancet, the world's most credible medical journal, whose trust has been hit by the HCQ scandal. It's an interesting article, but what I'm more interested in is the bottom part of it. So you have politicization of the HCQ, which is the problem here, people. Science has been politicized by the politics of people. The Lancet's past troubles. The Lancet also found itself in trouble when it published another Pseudosphere study which concluded that the ivermectin, an anti-parasitic drug, reduced the mortality in COVID-19 patients. This paper did not appear in any other journal, nor had it been peer-reviewed. It caused a surge in demand for a drug in Latin America, where it's readily available. Pseudosphere was labelled a mysterious company by Science magazine. But the Lancet's retraction is not unprecedented. Perhaps the big example was falsified paper by discredited ex-physician Andrew Wakefield, which suggested that the MMR, or measles, mumps and rubella vaccine, causes autism. This 1998 paper stated that 12 children who took the vaccine showed links to autism development because of the vaccine, but the data was found to be manipulated and the studies funded by anti-vaccine groups. And now, I'm not saying the Lancet doesn't do good work, because it does, but it's got a problem with credibility. Of course, when you go through the Lancet stuff, you'll see they do some fantastic work. But here's another one. Wet markets, a continuing source of severe acute respiratory syndrome and influenza, January the 17th, 2004. Now the Chinese are saying that the COVID didn't come from the wet market. Even fact that the Chinese reopened the wet markets up shortly after they lifted the bans in Wuhan. For better science, would Lancet and NGM retractions help it? Would Lancet and NGM retractions happen if not for COVID-19 and chloroquine? NGM and Lancet retract two fake papers. One was dealing with chloroquine. Did we just get a brief glimpse into the fraudulent abyss of medical literature and the corruption of medical elites, briefly opened by the current COVID-19 situation? So here, we're looking at people that are saying there is a problem within this Lancet because of fraudulent papers. This is the issue. So to say that is your source and single source of your evidence shows that you are not really a person to do research, because you would have to go to various other sources to clarify and back up your evidence. But if your evidence is relying just presumably from the Lancet, this calls into question your validity. As you see there, the Lancet, today 3 of its authors have retracted hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine with or without marcellodide for treatment of COVID-19 amid a multinational registry analysis. Read the retraction notice and statement from the Lancet. They had to pull that. But how much damage and how many lives were affected by this? Do we have the data for that? Because of these false science papers, how many people have died? How many people have got ill? Lancet's Formula Tracks fake hydroxychloroquine study used by media to attack Trump. Or was it because the big pharmaceutical companies are threatened by a very cheap medical product? That's another question. Because you have to look at all avenues. Questions raised over the hydroxychloroquine study, which caused the World Health Organization to halt trials of COVID-19. And there you have exactly why you should not take everything on face value and you should question everything, because science is not an exact thing, and also human nature comes into it and bias comes into it. A bit like the person I am discussing, because did they do any of this research? Did they look at any of this? But they deem people like myself that ask questions moronic. Okay, that's your opinion. My opinion is that you didn't do your work. You didn't do your job thoroughly. So let's go again to more death rates. Death rates from coronavirus in the United States as of June 26, 2020 by state per 100,000 people. New Jersey 167, New York 161. Now, if you multiply that by 10, that would be per million. That would be 1,610, 1,670. Which Belgium only has 851. New York is double that. That leads to the next question of why. But let's go back to here. Let's find out about Florida, shall we? Since the program you were going on about all these Karens, yeah, is quite amusing to me. But let's go try and find Florida. Delaware, Michigan, District of Rhode Island. Where are we? Florida. There we go. 15. Times that by 10, that's 150 per million. And yet you're turning around and criticising Florida because they did it a different way, or because they protected their nursing homes, where the majority of the deaths in New York came from the nursing homes because of the culpable and lunatic behaviour of one Governor Cuomo that signed an executive order that put COVID-19 patients in the nursing homes with the most vulnerable people in society. And that's fact. That's not make-believe. That was there. He did that. World Health Organization, another fantastic organisation, says this official says she suspected human-to-human COVID-19 transmissions right from the start. But the World Health Organization echoed misleading Chinese claims to the contrary for weeks. So for up until the end of January, we were led to believe that COVID-19 wasn't transmissible from human to human, which was a lie. But the experts, the science, we told to trust the science, here it is again. The science experts, led by Dr. Tedros, stated that nothing to worry about here, nothing to see, folks. It wasn't human to human, which was a lie. So let's talk about masks. Coronavirus, why masks don't work. There is a reason why I'm saying this, because as an ex-soldier, I have had the pleasure of doing nuclear, biological, chemical warfare with S-10 respirators. So you know that if you're trying to prevent germs going out or germs coming in, you need a seal all the way round your breathing area. In other words, to lock it all in. These masks don't do that. So let's go down to something here. Why are they useful? When are they useful? So it shows you where they could be used, which is why is hand washing so effective? Soap. Soap is one of the most amazing things in the world that gets rid of things. Why masks don't work. Masks get saturated with moisture from mouth and nose, and after about 20 minutes, once they are wet, they are no longer form a barrier against viruses trying to come through or exit. That's a fact. So once your little blue facial mask gets wet, it's about as much use as a chocolate fireguard. But we were told not to worry about face masks, remember? Buy another medical expert. Trust the science. Dr. Fauci explains why we were told not to bother with coronavirus face masks at first. New York Times. How to avoid the coronavirus. Wash your hands. Do face masks work? Type and effectiveness. Surgical masks. Do not, alright, so here we go. So this is what's for the problems we have with these masks. Inspect the mask for any holes or tears to make sure that it's intact. Wash your hands with soap and water or use an alcoholic-based hand sanitizer that contains at least 60% alcohol before putting on the mask. Cover your nose and mouth with the mask and make sure no gaps exist between it and your face. Avoid touching the mask while using it. Touching the front of your mask, which is exposed to the environment, can defeat the purpose of using it. If you do touch your mask, wash or sanitize your hands immediately. When your mask gets damp, replace it. Do not reuse the single-use masks. Remove your mask from behind rather than touching the front of the mask. Discard the mask immediately in a closed trash bin and clean your hands again. So while you were telling us about how important it is that everybody's got to wear these masks, you picked up your little blue mask and you sprayed your disinfectant, whatever you were doing to it, to show you how virtuous you are. But in fact, you have not a clue that these things are single use. So if you're going to wear the blue surgical mask, you have to take a box with you and you have to change them every 20 minutes. Once you've changed them every 20 minutes, you must make sure your hands are washed with alcohol. You must dispose of them in a secure thing as chemical waste. Do you understand now why people are saying, why are we told to use this when they're ineffective? They are causing probably more of a problem because the bacteria is still on there and people are not trained also how to use masks. That's another factor. Because when the doctors have the N95 masks, look it up for yourself, you'll find this is absolutely true. They have to go through a fitting to ensure that it seals all the way round. Again, sealing round the nose, round the mouth to ensure a close fit. But to top it all off, here is a guy telling everybody about coronavirus and how bad it is and everything else. And one of the things for coronavirus is wash your hands regularly with soap and water, so clean them with alcohol-based hand rubs. Maintain at least 6 feet distance between you and people coughing or sneezing. Avoid touching your face. Cover your mouth and nose when coughing or sneezing. Stay at home if you feel unwell. Refrain from smoking and other activities that weaken the lungs. So while you're smoking like a chimney, telling people that they're idiots because they should be wearing masks and everybody's got to wear masks. But here's another fact you didn't take into this. Every day you get up, you're taking on a risk. Every time you might say, for instance, have an egg for a breakfast, you don't know if that egg might contain salmonella. That might cause food poisoning. You might walk outside and get hit by the bus. You might meet somebody who might have a contagious disease you've never come across before. Life's about risk because that's what we are. We are walking biological beings that carry all forms of germs and diseases. So when you tell me about, I need to do my research, I've just given you a whole plethora there of the argument you should have done against as well as the argument for, instead of criticising those that have a problem with it. Because what you do, Mr. Hayes, is you tell a story, not the story. And on top of that, before I go, I must mention I haven't forgotten about Viktor Shokin, because I will now prove in the next time I deal, probably in a week's time, because on Monday I'll be putting together the next issue against Hawkins, because the 3 people I've asked haven't bothered to reply. So I will put it out in the next Hawkins video on Monday. But the next one after that, I will discuss Viktor Shokin, and I'll expose the fake circular reporting that you did. And I'm going to show you why, and I'll give you such impeccable evidence, it blow a hole in the whole story. So for that, ta-ta for now. And don't forget, we can discuss this at any time. After all, it is about civility. What does it say on your page? Let's go to About Us again. Many of the issues in the world today, we will not be able to find solutions if we cannot civilly discuss issues with one another. So I am civilly putting out to you why I think you're not a reporter but an activist, because you're not acting exactly what you've stated on your actual profile on your page. And the fact that you have Black Lives Matter as your logo with the Black Panther symbols as your solidarity for your virtue signalling leads it to that big point there. And before you start giving it off about Mr. George Floyd was murdered brutally, and they should be done for murder 1. But the fact of the matter is, the whole situation is wrong, and I believe in all Black Lives Matter. That includes the people in Chicago, the people in Libya that are sold in slave markets. Yeah, in Libya, that the last regime, i.e. the Obama, Clinton, Biden, Kerry group, created the slave markets in Libya. They also caused all the problems in Ukraine. But hey, what's evidence? When we can do it all by emotion.